Hi, my name is Dave Mastrangelo, the principal second violinist of the Naples Philharmonic, and I'm doing another one of my Corona Apocalypse videos to try and help students here in Naples when they're home practicing their instruments. I had a friend online who asked me if I could talk about vibrato, but before we talk about vibrato, we have to talk about intonation. Vibrato, at its root, is bending pitch, but if we're not playing in tune in the first place, we become the punchline to the Jascha Heifetz joke. And I know most of you don't know Jascha Heifetz, but believe me, you don't want to be the butt end of one of Jascha Heifetz's jokes where he said, vibrato is an excuse for bad intonation. We don't want that. So let's talk about intonation. The stuff I'm going to tell you was taught to me not by my high school violin teacher, not by my undergrad violin teacher. I had 6 weeks of lessons one summer with a violinist named Motoi Takeda in the Dallas Symphony. He taught this stuff to me. I had just played a senior recital full of really hard music, Bach, Chaconne, Franck Sonata, the entire Sibelius Concerto, and I thought things were pretty good. And he watched my left hand and he said, wow, he's like, you got a really good ear because you're just flinging your fingers up and down and you're sort of using your ear to guide you. That's putting the cart in front of the horse. What he taught me, and he took me back to some very basic exercises, he taught me to set my hand up properly physically first, and then you use your ear only to fine tune, okay? So I'm going to talk about hand frame. When you think of frame, you don't necessarily think of a picture frame. I want you to think of like a frame for a building, like a house or a skyscraper. It's the structure that underlines everything you're building on top of. And the frame and the interval that we must frame accurately is the fourth. Because that's the interval that gets us to the next string. That also outlines octaves, which are the most important intervals we play because that's where we get our positions. So we're talking about hand frame, and to build the frame, he gave me an exercise from a book called Schraddick, okay? And it's humbling to go back and play this after you've played all that music I already said, but I did it, I was willing to do it. And so we went to Schraddick. This is from the Schraddick book of The School of Violin Techniques, book 1. And this is very basic stuff. I'll play number 1 for you, and I will talk you through what we're doing. I want you to notice that the fingers, stay right over the string. Every finger equidistant over the string as though they were marionette puppets. A lot of you play like this. And what you do is you give, and then you complain that your fourth finger's too short. I've heard it. Yeah, everyone's fourth finger's too short. That's how the human hand was made. But what you do if you do this is you give the shortest finger the longest distance to get to the string. So start the fingers over the string at the same distance, and at least you give that shortest finger a fair shot of playing on time. You notice also as I'm playing up and down this, I leave the fingers down, right? Very simple. If you've played the note in tune, you can't miss it coming down. Watch. Those notes will all be in tune coming down because you didn't lift them. If you do this, you lift them up, you might play them in tune, but you might not. And remember, we don't want to take chances in intonation. Remember how many choices you've got on a non-fretted instrument like a violin or a viola or cello, right? That's like as near infinity choices as you could possibly have. And even Las Vegas is kinder to you than that. You might have a 1 in 10 million chance there. 1 in infinity is not odds you want. So get yourself set up physically correctly. And if you don't have to lift the finger, don't, because then you won't miss it. So that's what we do. We play up and we play down. So the first thing is we leave fingers down. We outline the fourth. And the other thing is make sure the second finger tucks really close to the third finger. All right? your hand naturally does not want to set up 4-note patterns like this, or like this, or like this. Your hand wants to do this. So if you just take your hand the way that it is and you cast your prayer to the universe and say, please, universe, help me play in tune, this is how you're going to play. Your fingers do not want to do things like this, or this, or this, right? So you've got to make them do what you want. So you've got to make sure the second finger tucks in close to the third finger when it's high. Okay, so keep the second finger high, keep the fingers down. Now, as you go through these exercises, and if you leave the fingers down, you're eventually going to get to ones here like number 7 and 8 where they're skipping fingers. What I want you to do on those, and again, this is an exercise for the left hand, right? You may not always play this way, but you have to be able to play this way, right? And it's more important to play this correctly than it is fast. I never play this exercise fast because that's not what its purpose is. Remember, when we practice, have a goal in mind and practice to accomplish the goal. Don't just take time. All right, so I'm going to play number 8 for you. I put all the fingers down. This is hard to do. You have to practice it. But remember what I talked about in my other video. We practice to replicate results. So we do this so that we can do this over and over again, and we can hit those notes. Not 7 times out of 10, not 9 times out of 10, not 99 times out of 100, not 999 times out of, as close to 999,999 out of a million, as close as we can get to never missing them. That's what we play for. That's what we try to do, right? Because at night, if I go and I play a concert with my music director, he doesn't come up to me and say, thank you so much for the 8,746 notes you played right. He says, hey, what happened to that B flat? We got to aim for perfection because that's what the expectation is. We're not perfect, but we have to at least set ourselves up to be as close to perfect as we can be. Do the exercise like this, and over time, what you're going to discover is that your intonation, right, you're going to build a very steady hand frame. Now, the 201 part of the Shradic is now we move the finger pattern around. When I learned it with a low 2. So now you have to do it. This is harder because the second and third fingers are connected in the hand. Every other finger, the bone goes straight to the wrist, except these two are connected in the hand. So it's hard to create that space. What tends to happen is if you make 2 low, 3 goes down with it. Right? The problem is then, sometimes, if you don't make it low enough, it's indistinct. So we need to practice keeping it low with a space to 3, right? And that's hard work, but again, it takes practice in the way you do it. As you do the Shradic. Now, once you've finally done all this, let's talk about an instance when it's useful to leave our fingers down. I'm just going to give this out of all, there's tons of places I could show you, but a very notorious place is the opening of the Mozart 4th Violin Concerto. You're starting up in not first position, and usually the opening is arpeggio is out of tune a lot. So what we do is we use what we learned in Shradic and leave the fingers down. If you leave the fingers down, they're always going to be in tune coming back. So that's just one instance when leaving fingers down is crucial. So before we talk about vibrato, which I would love to talk about, we have to settle the issue of hand frame and being able to play consistently in tune. Another part of this, I'll talk about scales and how we practice scales, and we incorporate the Shradic into the scales. We incorporate the scales into our pieces. And by doing all of that together, then we can build a solid sense of intonation so that we can play consistently in tune. I hope this helps you guys out. Good luck.